Long before humans learned to build houses or speak words, the Earth was a very different place. The year was not counted in thousands but in millions. 4.2 million years ago, when forests covered almost every part of the world and strange creatures ruled the land. But there were things moving in the skies that no creature understood. Some called them fires in the heavens, others the eyes of the gods. But what if they were something else, something not of this world? It all began with a strange sound that echoed through the valleys. The ground shook and animals ran in fear. Deep in the wild plains of ancient Africa, the early ancestors of humans, small, curious beings with minds just beginning to awaken, looked up in confusion. Something was glowing in the night sky, bright like a second sun. It didn't fade away like stars do. It moved slowly, with purpose. No creature on Earth could understand it. But for the first time, something beyond Earth was watching them. Millions of years before pyramids, before fire, and before history, there may have been visitors. Beings who came not to conquer but to observe. Their shapes were unlike anything Earth had seen. Tall, silver, and silent. They moved among the trees, their eyes glowing faintly, studying the strange primitive life forms that crawled and climbed. To the creatures of Earth, these figures were neither threat nor friend, only mystery. One night, something changed. A great light descended near a river, and the early beings gathered at a distance, hiding in fear and wonder. They saw the ground burn without fire and a mist rise into the air. When the light faded, something strange remained. A large black stone, perfectly shaped, smooth like glass. The small beings didn't know it, but they were standing near the first object ever made by hands not from this planet. Over the next days, strange things began to happen. The animals acted differently, the air felt heavy, and storms came suddenly. The small creatures began to dream, something they had never done before. They saw strange shapes in their minds. The stars, the glowing sky, and the silver figures who looked at them with calm, shining eyes. They did not understand, but something deep inside them had changed forever. The visitors never stayed long. Their crafts would rise silently and vanish into the clouds. But wherever they went, they left signs. Small markings on rocks, perfect circles on the ground, and mysterious symbols that no one could explain. These marks remained for millions of years, buried under the soil, waiting to be discovered by humans who would one day wonder, were we truly alone? Or were we shaped by something greater? No one on Earth could answer that question then. But the first spark of intelligence had been lit, a gift from the unknown. And as time passed, evolution would do the rest. Yet the memory of the glowing sky and the silver being stayed somewhere deep in the oldest part of the human mind. A silent whisper passed through generations, telling the story of the first visitors. Many years later, when humans began to paint on cave walls, strange figures appeared in their art, tall shapes with round heads and glowing circles above them. No one knew where the idea came from, but those who looked closely realized that these shapes were not animals, not spirits, but something else entirely. The question still remains, who were they? Why did they come? And if they came once, could they come again? Some believe they never left. Some say the stars still hold their presence, waiting for the right moment to return. The truth lies buried under time, but the clues are there, waiting to be seen. And this is just the beginning. Because what happened after their visit changed the destiny of life itself. Thousands of years passed after the glowing lights vanished from the ancient skies. The small creatures who once hid in fear had slowly begun to change. They walked taller, thought deeper, and started to use stones as tools. But they didn't know that something inside them had already been touched by the stars. The gift left by the sky beings had started to grow. The gift of thought, of curiosity, and of imagination. The black stone left near the river still stood, untouched by time. Around it, the air always felt strange, as if it carried a silent hum. No creature dared to go too close, but some, the bravest ones, would sit near it, feeling warmth and a strange peace in their hearts. Over generations, that stone became something more. A silent teacher. When lightning struck nearby, the creatures learned fear, but near the stone they learned wonder. One night when the sky was clear and stars shone brighter than ever, one of the early beings stood on a cliff and raised his hand toward the sky. For the first time, a thought was born. What lies beyond those lights? He did not have words to speak it, but the feeling was real. And somewhere beyond the clouds, far from Earth, the sky beings noticed. They had been watching from their great ships hidden among the stars. They saw how the spark they left had grown. They saw the small minds begin to awaken, and for reasons unknown to humans, they decided to return. But this time they came not as silent observers. They came to guide. A second light appeared, brighter and closer than before. It landed near a mountain range where a small group of these early humans lived. They were frightened but curious. They saw figures step out of the light, tall, calm, their bodies shining faintly in the dark. They didn't speak, yet somehow the small beings understood them. It was not sound. It was something deeper, like a feeling shared directly into their minds. The beings showed them shapes drawn in the air, stars, planets, circles, and lines. None of it made sense to them then, but it would remain in their memories forever. Before leaving, the sky beings placed another object near the mountain. A thin, silver disk, smooth and glowing faintly. Then, as silently as they came, they disappeared again. Days later, storms came. The disk vanished, buried under soil and stone, waiting to be discovered millions of years later. Over many generations, the creatures changed faster. Their tools improved. They began to form small groups to share food, to protect each other. Fire was still unknown to them, but something far greater was growing. The beginning of human thinking. They started to look at the stars at night with wonder, not fear. Some even drew strange patterns on cave walls, circles, lines, and tall shapes that looked nothing like them. As ages passed, the beings evolved into early humans. They could speak in small sounds, make fire, and shape tools. Yet deep inside their minds they carried an ancient memory of lights in the sky and glowing visitors who came long before. Some tribes told stories of the bright ones who came from the stars and taught their ancestors to see and think. Others built stone symbols facing the sky, as if calling those beings back, and strange things kept happening. Across far lands, ancient humans started building structures far beyond their simple knowledge. Perfect stone circles, carvings of flying shapes, and drawings of beings with large heads and shining eyes. How could they know such things when the world was still young? Some say they remembered what their ancestors had seen. Others believe the visitors came again, guiding them silently through dreams. But one mystery stood above all: the stones. The same black, perfect stones began to appear in different parts of the world. Each one carried the same strange energy, the same hum in the air as if connected by something unseen. No one knew what they were made of. They were not from this earth. Thousands of years later, when future humans would find these stones buried deep in the ground, they would call them anomalies. But back then, they were seen as sacred gifts, the mark of the sky beings. And as human minds grew sharper, their eyes turned toward the stars again. The same question whispered through every generation. Who are they? Why did they come? And when will they return? Because even though they had vanished, the visitors had left behind something more powerful than any technology: the hunger to know, the curiosity to explore. The seed of civilization had been planted, and humanity's story had only just begun. Thousands of years turned into hundreds of thousands. The world changed again. Ice covered parts of the earth, and great beasts like mammoths and saber-toothed tigers ruled the land. Yet humans continued to survive. They learned to hunt together, to build shelter, and to protect fire as their greatest treasure. But deep inside, they still looked to the stars with the same silent question: who gave us the spark? Strange stories began to spread between tribes living far apart, stories that were somehow the same. Each spoke of a time when bright lights came from the sky and giants of light walked among them. They said the visitors gave them wisdom, taught them to shape stone, to count time, and to look at the stars not with fear, but with respect. No one could explain how these tribes, separated by oceans, could share the same story. As humans learned more, they began to build. In deserts, jungles, and mountains, they lifted stones so heavy that even today no one fully understands how. The people said they were not alone. The sky ones helped us, they claimed. And across the earth, the same pattern appeared. Massive stone circles, straight lines pointing to the heavens, and carvings that looked like flying shapes. In Egypt, long before history began, a group of people stood near a vast desert, watching stars align above the horizon. They spoke of those who came from the sun. They built structures that matched the stars in perfect order. How could they have such knowledge? Some say it was the memory of those who once descended in light. In South America, Carvings showed figures with large eyes and strange helmets, holding objects that looked like fire and lightning. The people worshipped them as gods who brought knowledge from the sky. They made lines and figures across the land so large they could only be seen from above, perhaps as messages to those same beings. In ancient Mesopotamia, the oldest written records told of visitors who came down from the heavens and taught mankind to build and rule. They were called the Anunnaki, beings who came from the stars to guide humanity's first civilization. The text described flying chariots and shining discs that moved like thunder. Everywhere the same mystery repeated. How could people across the world with no way to meet or talk share the same idea? Beings descending from the sky, giving wisdom, and leaving again. Some believed these were just myths, stories made to explain the unknown. But others felt something deeper. What if these were not myths but memories? What if humanity's earliest teachers were not from this earth at all? Archaeologists later found strange artifacts that did not belong to their time. Carvings of flying shapes, metal objects buried in rock millions of years old, and maps showing parts of the world humans could not yet explore. These things did not fit into human history. They whispered of something older, a forgotten age guided by those who walked between stars. But then suddenly, the sky beings vanished once again. No more lights in the sky. No more gifts of knowledge. Humanity was left alone to rise or fall on its own. Some tribes fell into fear, thinking they had angered their gods. Others continued to look up at night, hoping to see the light return. Over centuries, memory turned into legend, and legend became myth. The truth of those early visits faded under the dust of time. Yet their signs remained, hidden in great monuments, in stories passed down by elders, and in symbols carved deep into stone. Still, one thing was certain. Wherever those beings came from, they had shaped the path of human evolution. The sudden rise of intelligence, the birth of civilization, the endless desire to reach beyond, all of it might have begun with them. But the question that would haunt mankind forever was this: if they left once before, could they come back again? And as human civilization began to grow stronger, building empires and reaching for the skies once more, strange things started happening again. Lights seen in the heavens, whispers of watchers among the stars. It seemed the story was not over. The visitors were returning. Thousands of years passed again. Great empires rose and fell: Egypt, Mesopotamia, Greece, Rome, and many more. Humans built machines, discovered science, and reached the age of technology. Yet one question never left their hearts: where did we come from? From gods, from nature, or from the stars? No one truly knew. But the answer was waiting, buried deep in history, hidden in plain sight. Across the world, strange things started happening again. In the deserts, pilots reported seeing shining discs moving faster than any aircraft. In the oceans, deep under the waves, objects moved with impossible speed. Satellites captured lights rising from the atmosphere and disappearing into space. Governments tried to hide the truth, calling them natural events or secret tests. But the truth was far beyond what anyone expected. In ancient temples, scientists found patterns that matched the stars, not as they are now, but as they looked thousands of years ago. The same symbols appeared in ruins across continents that had never met. Circles, triangles, and shapes that resembled planets in orbit. It was as if ancient people knew more about space than modern humans could imagine. How then one day, something extraordinary happened. A signal was detected, a repeating pattern coming from far beyond our solar system. It wasn't random. It was a message. The code, when translated, matched symbols found on ancient stones. It was the same spiral pattern carved beside the black stones millions of years ago, the same mark that early humans had seen when the visitors first came. Scientists worked day and night. They realized the signal was not just a message, it was a map, a path leading toward a distant star system that could support life. But before they could send a reply, telescopes recorded something incredible: a massive object entering Earth's orbit. It was not an asteroid. It moved with precision, silently, purposefully. The world watched as it appeared above the clouds, glowing softly like a silver moon. People panicked. Some prayed, some celebrated, and others feared the unknown. But deep down, humanity knew they had come back. The same beings who had once shaped their minds were now returning to see what their creation had become. For days, the object stayed motionless in the sky. No communication, no attack, only silence. Then lights began to appear on the ground, in deserts, in mountains, near oceans, the same places where ancient structures once stood. The stones that had slept for thousands of years began to glow, forming lines of light that connected across continents. It was as if the earth itself was awakening, remembering its ancient teachers. In a remote valley, scientists found one of the black stones uncovered by an earthquake. It vibrated softly like a heartbeat. When they touched it, the stone projected images into the air. Not words, but visions. They saw Earth millions of years ago, the silver beings descending from the sky, the early humans watching in awe. They saw the moment the spark of intelligence was given, a moment that changed everything. The message was clear. We guided you once, now you are ready to stand alone. Then, just as suddenly, the lights across the world faded. The great object in the sky began to move again, rising higher and higher until it vanished among the stars. No war, no contact, no destruction, only silence and a deep feeling that something greater had just happened. Humanity realized that they were never alone, but they were never controlled either. The visitors had given them a beginning. The rest of the journey was theirs to make. In the years that followed, people looked at the stars differently. They didn't just see light. They saw history, connection, and purpose. The question changed from, did aliens appear in prehistoric times? To, will we ever meet them again? Some believe they are still watching, hidden among the stars, waiting for the day when humans finally step beyond their planet, when we become explorers, just like them. And perhaps when that day comes, they will welcome us as equals, the children of the stars who finally found their way home. The truth was never lost. It was only waiting for us to look up.